Hello everyone, this is Mrs. McCrary. Today we're going to continue looking at compound proportions from Elementary Treatise, and we're going to start with an example. If 9 laborers working 8 hours a day have spent 24 days digging a ditch 65 yards long, 13 yards wide, and 5 yards deep, how many days will it take 71 laborers of equal ability working 11 hours a day to dig a ditch 327 yards long, 18 yards wide, and 7 yards deep? All right, so right away we know that we're looking for how many days. And so I'm going to find my other unit, 24 days. So our known unit of the same kind is always going to be our third term. And now let's go ahead and just work with that first term that comes up, 9 laborers. So let's find our other set of laborers, 71. All right, now if we think about this, in general, it's going to take 71 laborers less time to complete a task, so that's actually going to go on top. All right, so 71 over 9. So that is going to give us, we're going to leave this just in expression form. We're not going to be solving any actual numbers just yet. We're just going to be looking at where these numbers go. So we're going to take our second and our third terms, multiply them, and divide by our first. So that's going to give us 24 times 9 over 71 over x. All right, still looking for that x. And now, since that's not the only consideration, let's look for our next one. Oh, 8 hours a day and 11 hours a day. Again, if you're going to be working 11 hours a day, it should take you less time to do something than if you're working 8 hours a day. So 11 hours is going to go on top. Okay, so if we remember our means and extremes, we have so these are going to go together and these are going to go together. Keep our space. So that is going to give us 24 times 9 times 8 over, oops, sorry, not supposed to be a 71. 71 times 11 over x. Okay, now let's go ahead and look for our third variable. Okay, 65 yards long and 327 yards long. So now, again, looking for what would result in the least amount of time. If you are working on something 65 yards long, that's going to take much less time than if you're working on something that's 327 yards. So we're going to orient it that way. Okay, again, working with our means and extremes. So this 327 is going to come up here. 65 is going to end up down there. Okay, so we end up with 24 times 9 times 8 times 327 over 65 times 71 times 11 over x. Still looking for that x. Of course, this numerator here could all be combined down into an integer. Okay, so 13 yards wide. 13 yards versus 18 yards. Okay, so we have 13 yards versus 18 yards. 13 yards is going to take, in general, less time than 18 yards. So 13 is going to go on top. 18 is going to go on bottom. That 18 is going to end up on the top. That 13 is going to end up on the bottom. So that's going to give us 24 times 9 times 8 times 327 times 18 over 65 times 71 times 11 times 13 over x. And then 5 yards deep and 7 yards deep. Okay, equals 5 yards deep is going to take less time than 7 yards deep, so 5 is our numerator, 7 is our denominator. Now think again. We're going to be multiplying these two and dividing. We're going to be multiplying. See, now this is our entire third term. It's a big and complicated third term, but it is our third term. So we're multiplying these, and we remember multiplying fractions, we can multiply our numerator. We're going to be dividing by our first term, to divide into a fraction, we can multiply by the denominator. So we end up with, and I believe this is our last term. Yep, that's all of our terms. So we end up with 24 times 9 times 8 times 327 times 18 times 7 over 65 times 71 times 11 times 13 times 5 gives us our value. So, and again, remember that this 24 is the original unit that went with the x. I think it was in days. Yeah, how many days? So, we're looking, these are all of our, those are our dependent, and now these here are all of the units that combine, and I wrote them in a bit of an unusual order. Hold on, let me fix that up quickly. Okay, so with the 9 we had 71, with the 8 we had 11, with the 327 we had the 65, with the 18 we had 13, oops, and with the 7 we had 5. Okay, so here is, oops, pick a different highlighter. Let's do the blue. Okay, so here is one condition. Here is one condition. Here is a second condition. Here's a third condition. Here's a fourth condition. Here's a fifth condition. All right. Now we can see that all these numbers that are in the numerator, or I'm sorry, the denominator, 71, 11, 65, 13, 5, 71, 11, 65, 13, 5, those are all the numbers that were in our numerators. And 9, 8, 327, 18, and 7, 7, 18, 327, 8, and 9 were all in our denominators. Now, because we're always multiplying this, again, second term, or our denominator, by our numerator, or third term, all these denominators are going to end up in our numerator, as they did down here. And then we divide by our first term. These were all of our first terms. And then we multiply all of our second terms by our third term and divide by all of our first terms. Now, Elementary Treatise section 123 gives us a very nice rule for that. Make the number which is the same kind with the required answer the third term. Up here, that was our 24. Let me rewrite this where we can see it. Okay, so we had 24 times, I'm going to use parentheses just to kind of keep everything together. We had 9 times, I'm going to say 8. 8 times 327 times 18 times 5? Nope, times 7. Okay. Over 71 times 11 times 65 times 13 times 5. 11, 65, 13, 5, yep, equals x. Okay, so this is our final answer. Let's write it as a proportion. So we would have make the number that is the same kind as the required answer, this 24, the third. Okay, and of the remaining numbers, take any two that are of the same kind and place one for the first term and the other for the second term according to the directions in simple proportions. So we have the 71 and 9. Again, 71 being what would give us by itself a shorter time if those were our only two considerations. Being the number of workers, 71 men divided by, or 71 laborers compared to 9 laborers, this would give us a shorter amount of time. And then any other two of the same kind, and so on till they are all used. So we're going to be looking again at every kind, just making sure that we follow the rule of what is going to go on top, or what is going to be in the first place, what's going to be in the second place. And that is just going to depend on, if that is the only condition you're looking at, which is going to give you a smaller answer. The smaller answer goes on top. So again, 71 men compared to 9 men. 71 men is going to give you a smaller dig time. I think, what was this, 11 hours a day? Yep. If they work 11 hours a day compared to 8 hours a day, working 11 hours a day is going to give you a smaller dig time. You're digging 65 yards long versus 327 yards long. 65 yards is going to give you a smaller dig time. 13 yards wide versus 18 yards wide, 13 is going to give you a smaller dig time. 5 yards deep versus 7 yards deep, 5 is going to give you a smaller dig time. And then again, remember, of course, these can be simplified down into integers. You can go ahead and multiply those out at any time. We're going to then multiply our second term by our third term, which is why our 24 is over here, and then divide this all by our first term, which puts it in the numerator, and that is how we are going to solve it. As you're working on this, it really doesn't matter how many conditions you have. You're going to always place the you can just multiply all of your first terms together, multiply all of your second terms together in your first and second terms. Then once you have that integer, when you have that reduced down, if you choose to do so, then you're just going to work with it as a simple proportion. Again, just looking at each condition, what is going to create a smaller answer given the specific requirements that you have, because digging a hole is different than animals eating food, is different than the amount of time spent working compared to how you're getting paid. All of those different conditions will apply. Just go ahead and think through it, use some logic, and whatever would give you a smaller answer is going to be what's placed on top. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you at our live chat.